Hey everybody, this is Raul with Bass Musician Magazine, and today we are going to be doing a long distance interview, which is something that we haven't done before. We're really excited to do, and we're going to be getting caught up with my good friend and fellow bassist, multi-instrumentalist, Peter Fan, who plays with Cirque Du Soleil. So I know you see Peter here in the other screen, and we'll get things set up. The last time we had a chance to chat, Peter was playing with Zarkana in Las Vegas, and he was doing just that amazing job at keeping down the low end, but also playing the kora, which was an experience I don't think I'll ever forget because that instrument is just the craziest thing I think I've ever seen, but just amazing, crazy. So it's so good. So Peter, tell us. Since we've chatted in Las Vegas, I know Zarkana has left Vegas, and you have now transitioned over to a new show titled Kooza, and it is in Santiago, Chile.
That's right, yeah. Our show, Zarkana, closed on April 30th after I had been working with the show for about 5.5 years, seeing it from the creation all the way to the very last show. And it was a very interesting process watching that show evolve over all of those years and seeing the way that the music changed and the whole scene over there changed. And when it closed, it was a pretty sad thing to see it go because it was a very special and cool production.
Mm-hmm.
Very grandiose, massive thing designed for some of the biggest stages in the world. It was originally set for Radio City Music Hall, which is a 6,000 capacity room, and also for the Kremlin Palace in Moscow, which was also 5,900 capacity. So very big stage, big concept, and not particularly intimate, just massive. The whole idea was to try and make it as big as possible so that the people in the highest balcony in the very back of the theater would be able to see it and experience it even from that far away. Now, since that show closed, I've been in the process of trying to see what was coming next in my life and auditioning things and going through that process that we go through when there's a lull in our work. And I auditioned for the show Kooza, which I am very happy to have joined in the past month. And this show is kind of the polar opposite of what Zarkana was in concept and design. It's a very intimate show. The theater is still very big. I mean, the capacity is 2,500, which is quite big for a tent. It's a big top touring show, which is a really cool and different experience. The stage is very small. It's effectively in the round. It's a round stage where about maybe 80% of the round is populated by audience members, and the band rests on something that they call the Bataclan, which is a band platform that's about maybe 15 feet or 12 feet in the air above, right in the center above the stage, where we have a very nice view, a perspective vantage point of the acts and staging that's going on below us. And the music is great. It's led by a fantastic band leader named Carl Murr, it's an interesting band because the concept and design of it was that they're all multi-instrumentalists. It's a very horn-featured band, but all of the horn players play other things. The trumpet player is a great trumpet player, but also a great guitar player. The band leader is a trombone player and keyboard player, and the saxophone player, who also plays a bunch of other winds, is a wonderful piano player and guitar player. And then I come in as a bass player, and you know that my history also is as a multi-instrumentalist. So we're now beginning to work in mandolin into one piece because that's something that I bring to the table. And then it's got a great drummer and a percussion. It's a really very rich and dynamic band, very cool, and music is really lively and fun and spirited and positive. So, and also two singers, which are both different stylistically, very different types of singers. One is like a soul singer, and one has more of a Indian flavor to the vocal lines and idea. So it's really cool. It's been a great experience. The bass player who This is a temporary position as of now, and the bass player who created the part is named Jean-Louis Locas, who's a wonderful bass player from Montreal. And I'm here filling his role until he's been out of the show for a little while, and we'll see when he's going to come back. But it's very cool. It's really great to be in this environment that's so intimate and so creative and fun. Very positive.
Excellent. And if I'm not mistaken, and feel free to correct me, but Cirque's beginnings were more of the tent street performer traditional kind
Yeah.
of approach. I seem to recall them being in New York City and doing this, and they were breaking away from the concept of circuses without having animal acts and things like that. And so the tent has really been kind of one of their more traditional things. We've had the good fortune to see shows in the tents when they're in our neck of the woods, and it's just amazing, the even just the caliber of the tent itself, because I have sat in dingy circus tents down in Georgia when the circus was coming through. When I'd go to the Cirque tent, I'm going, oh my gosh, I mean, this is as close to a permanent setup that you can get, but still portable when they strike it. And to hold a capacity of 2,500 people is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, actually. You know,
And
the tent is a very historic part of the circus tradition,
mhm.
and there are still circus tents traveling around in the more sort of gypsy circus style and traditional circus all around the world. And yeah, Cirque. It's interesting that you mentioned that thing in New York. My first experience with Cirque du Soleil was back in like I think it was 1990 or 91, where I saw a show called Nouvelle Experience, which was set up in Battery Park in New York, and it was one of these big top tents. And going into the tent was an experience I won't forget. It was just a really profound thing to walk in and have this. You really are transported into another world, like a whole universe of circus aesthetic, and the staging of that particular show just blew me away, and it revolutionized my perspective about performance and what performance could be. And now I've always kind of had it in my head that I'd like to do that. You know, being on a big top tour, it's a very special thing. It's dynamic, is different than a theater show for sure, and different than anything that really exists anywhere. So this is for me kind of like the holy grail, to be on a big top, Cirque tour. It's very, very cool.
And what is always amazing to me is how Cirque, with all the shows that they have, manages to have such an original concept with each of their shows and kind of the theme. What is Kooza about? What's the kind of thrust of the show?
Well, there are some really fun, playful characters. There's an innocent. There's a lot of really great clowns who are um, engaging with the audience throughout the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's very playful and positive, more so than maybe any Cirque show that I've seen. As a result, actually, the whole dynamic of the tour is that way. Like, the people are very positive, and the whole energy of the place is very positive, very playful. The band is fun and playful because I think the nature of the show, where they follow these characters that are fun, playful, spirited characters through this trajectory, I guess. It lends the entire dynamic of the space a really fun and playful sort of energy.
Excellent.
Very cool. Yeah.
And we've often said that music is the universal language, but yeah, I think it carries over to Cirque kind of performance as well, because here you are in South America, and I remember sitting in Cirque shows and going, wait, that's French.
Yeah.
I'm not, but you don't, it translates universally in the performances and the gestures and the clowns and all this.
Absolutely. There are some things that have been modified that I guess in every place that we go are modified there's certain language things that are spoken in English when we're in an English-speaking country, or in Spanish when we're in a Spanish-speaking country. But most of it translates regardless of the language. A lot of the lyrics of the songs are in Cirquish, kind
Yes.
of, invented language, and it doesn't. You don't need to know exactly what the words are per se to understand the meaning and the gestures, and some of it just transcends language.
Mm-hmm.
And musically, it's really, this show has some Latin flavor, and it's got a lot. It goes to a lot of different places, which is, I think, it works kind of anywhere. I guess that's one of the reasons the show has been so very successful. We're here in Santiago, in Chile, and here the show is almost sold out every night. And that's pretty impressive, I think. For a show that's already been around for nearly a decade, it's got a lasting sort of power about it that seems to continue to draw audiences, which is great.
Now, you guys are going to be in Santiago till the end of the month.
Yep, the 31st is our last show here.
And what's the next stop in the tour?
And then the show goes to Australia for about 10 months.
Wow.
And we'll be in 4 cities there, starting in Sydney. And that, I believe we start there on August, I want to say around the 20th. I don't remember the exact date of the first show, but it's roughly around the 20th.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be very fun and different to be there, I think. It's going to be interesting. The show's been in South America for a while now, and it's going now to Australia, and then it'll be going to Asia and doing some really cool cities over there, and going to Thailand and Kuala Lumpur and various places, which will be really cool and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be cool to see the way that the show is received in all these different places and what the differences are.
Gotcha. Now, I recall while you were in Vegas, you were also still playing the mandolin quite a bit, and you were playing with another band and doing other stuff. While you're on tour, are you able to continue pursuits outside of the Cirque program? I mean, to me, it would seem kind of almost potentially all-consuming from the point of view that you're experiencing being in such a different place. You might not find time to go inside and go, okay, I'm going to work on writing my own music or doing whatever. What have you got going on?
Well, I think this is a musician reality, is that no matter where you are and no matter what is going on in your life, you kind of need to carve out the time to do your own creative work.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in this band on this tour, I know that we all have a pretty rigid attention to our own practice schedule. Like, here I am in this wonderful country where there's so many cool things to see, and I do go see things, and I run every morning and try and get out and experience the city. But I also, when I do that, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to run at this time, then I'm going to practice at this time so that I have time to do, go see this thing or whatever, because that's just the way that we operate. I think generally most musicians need to do that. As you know, I've been playing mandolin and have been very invested in that for a long while. And while I was in Las Vegas, I was playing in a great band called Tin Toy Cars. I'm still a big part of what I'm doing. And in that band, I'm featured as a mandolin player and singer and songwriter. And that band features a bunch of musicians, some other Cirque musicians, and a couple of other local Las Vegas musicians. And here, while I'm not with those guys and working on that project directly, like performing with that group, etc., everywhere that I go, I have my mandolin and I am writing. And I'm hoping that on this tour, I'll write the next record. That we released a record this past January called Falling Rust and Bones, which it has actually gotten a lot of really great support from radio and press around the country and around Europe. And we released a music video to support that for a song called Do Everything You Can Before You're Dead, which you got to check out. It's really fun. It has some Cirque performers in it and even features some skydivers and things flying into frame while the band is out in the desert performing. And It's really very, very fun and a cool project. Great musicians, very high level of like crafty artistry going on in that project. So here I am in Santiago, and we'll be in Australia, and it will probably be a little while before I'm reunited with the guys in that band to release the next record. But hopefully, this will allow me to have a process for writing that will be new and different, and I'll probably bring some new flavors to the next record. Here in Santiago, I bought a charango.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's like a 10-string instrument that's traditionally from here and in Bolivia and Peru. And interestingly, when I was in college, I wrote a piece that was like a sort of a thesis paper on the charango. And I never really even played one or seen one up close when I was writing this thing, because I was a student of ethnomusicology, and I was studying about music of this region of the world, and was really intrigued by this instrument, the charango. So I listened to a bunch of it and studied about it, and then wrote this big thesis paper on it. And that was like, 2 decades ago or something like that. But when I learned that I was coming here, the very first thing that I put on my agenda was to find a charango and a charango teacher to start studying with, so that I could get a little bit of that flavor in my playing. Because it all translates. Like, you learn some charango. When I was in Moscow, I was studying the balalaika, and all those things then find their way into my bass playing, which is always sort of the fundamental. I mean, it's funny that I say fundamental when we're regarding the bass, but
Sure.
It's always been my primary instrument. But everything else that I do, I come back to the bass, and I feel slightly more informed by the other things that I find on the road.
Gotcha. Now, for people that aren't acquainted with a charango, it's a 10-string. They're tuned in like twos with octaves. So 5 sets of 2.
It's 5 courses of 2, and all of the courses are the same exact note. So I mean, like the one pair are unisons, and each of the pairs are in unison. But it's with the exception of the middle string, which is actually instead of being unison, they're octaves.
Gotcha.
And it's a very cool, beautiful sounding instrument. It's up in that same higher register that the mandolin is in. The top 2 strings are actually tuned like a mandolin, but the rest of the tuning is it's like a whole other universe. It's very bizarre. It's kind of like this hybrid thing that has a little bit of a element of ukulele or a little element of mandolin, but blended with this almost tres o cuatro kind of Latin music sound to it. It's really cool. It's very fun and interesting.
And how many octaves above the bass are we talking here? I mean, you've got
3.
Wow.
Well, I mean, 2 octaves above. I guess it depends on what part of the bass, what register of the bass we're talking about.
Sure.
But yeah, it's sort of in the same register as the mandolin.
Gotcha. Well, that's amazing. Very, very cool stuff. And certainly every time we've had the chance to speak with one of the bassists that are playing for Cirque, it is a dream job. As a matter of fact, we were talking to David Pelletier with Mystère, and I'd ask him what advice would he have for musicians if they wanted to try to perform with Cirque. And he very rapidly said, "Don't be looking for my job. I'm not leaving anytime soon. I'm holding on to this. So the less that you know, the better it is for me. I kind of hang on to this."
Yeah, well, it's very, very competitive. There are not many positions, and there's a lot of really fantastic bass players out there. And really, the biggest thing I think is being very versatile. In this show, I'm playing about 50% upright and 50% electric. And nowadays, every bass chair that I see for every show that I've auditioned for, generally it's a 5-string. Like, you don't really see books written for 4-string anymore. Pretty much everything that I've encountered is. Just before this show, I did a show called Bright Side in Las Vegas, which was a show that they're aiming to put on Broadway in the coming year or 2, and even in that smaller production, every book is basically written for 5 strings. So as a bass player, I would say, like, everybody be as versatile as you can possibly be. Get comfortable with getting all over the the instrument,
Mm-hmm.
the 5-string, and then if you can play upright, it's super helpful.
Absolutely. Well, and if nothing else, we can progress past this rabid position of Jocko only had 4 strings. I don't
Yeah,
need any more. I mean, the
yeah,
reality of it is there's an evolution in the instrument
yeah,
where that low B is going to come in handy.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and
And it's just this low frequency thing that's become a central part of what modern music is.
mhm,
There's more bottom, and there's more ability to craft that bottom so that it fits in a mix in music,
mhm.
which it's just a different musical world right now, and we have to embrace it.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of that goes also beyond the auditory and the sensorial nature of feeling the instrument because
Yeah,
and I think it's one of the things when people put in the little earbuds and stuff, they go, "Oh, this is so like disappointing." It's because you don't get that punch in your
yeah,
chest that we get with the lower frequencies that you can actually feel it. And I recall we went to see Earth, Wind, and Fire play, and Verdine was just punching us in the chest,
yeah.
and we weren't even close to the stage, and it was just like boom, 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 and like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for. So, Peter, I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your very, very busy schedule.
But
Um, Thank you ever so much. Thanks to the people with Cirque for being so supportive of us bringing the bass players of the organization out into the light where they need to be occasionally. I know you guys are at least more visible than some shows, but it's just fabulous to get a chance to chat with you. Um, Thanks ever so much,
of course.
and you've heard it here, people. Bass Musician Magazine. Peter Fand coming to us from Chile, soon to be in Australia. See the Cirque shows. Do whatever you have to do, but see a Cirque show. They're amazing, no matter what it is. They're just mind-boggling, and who knows? You could find yourself so inspired you may play with a Cirque show. I might be talking to you in the future.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Signing
Great.
off.